Wicked for good. No one believed in you more than I did. Well, that's not true. I've not exactly been keeping it a secret that I am not a big fan of Act 2 of Wicked. Without going into great detail, I think the story is pretty ham-fisted in terms of the way it shoves elements from The Wizard of Oz in there with little rhyme or reason. You don't think the Tin Man would ever look at the Scarecrow and go, hey, I know that guy? It's a limp follow-up to the mostly pretty solid Act 1 that makes very little sense, feels haphazard, and is super rushed. But, as someone who was wholly blown away by the first Wicked, a movie that greatly improved on its source material by expanding... you know what? I said expanding. You know, that's an Ozism. That's fine. I'll keep it. By expanding and deepening it in unexpected ways, I kind of had faith that they would recognize the flaws of Act 2 and make great strides to improve them. I don't know. Call me crazy, but I was honestly pretty excited for an adaptation of a musical half I personally cannot stand. So here we are. Wicked for Good has finally arrived and the story is complete. Do I think this is better than the first film? I mean, I genuinely don't think it could have been. No, obviously not. Do I think this is an improvement over Act 2 of the musical? Well, likewise, I don't think it could have been worse than that. So yeah, I do think this film is better than its source material. But do I think Wicked for Good is good? Believe me when I say I really wanted to. I was genuinely looking forward to this one for so long. The first film is so strong that it rewired my brain chemistry and got me addicted to Wicked. But I'm sorry, I just don't think this new one has the sauce overall. One major advantage it has on paper over the original is that it definitely is not rushed. Act 2 of Wicked had a lot of plot to cram in like 45 minutes. Whereas the movie has plenty of time to breathe and flesh out certain elements, which I actually appreciated. It's nice seeing Elphaba rescue and try and rally the animals. The general themes of oppression and fascism are much stronger here than they were in the first film. I also think the stuff with Bach and Nessa was really well done. Well, aside from Wicked Witch of the East, that was a little iffy music-wise. But I like the way they flesh out elements of their relationship that the original just had to brush past. Even if some things don't add up, like Bach already tried to leave in this version, then he comes back because he physically can't. But then he's like, okay, now I can leave, even though the thing stopping me isn't resolved right now. Okay, sorry, this is about the positives. Ethan Slater and Marissa Baudet really bring it, with Ethan especially eating up a later song that I don't even like that much. On the subject, there's a certain line about the Cowardly Lion that I find really cringe in the musical, but by introducing the lion earlier in the movie, it's less of a shoehorned Wizard of Oz reference and more of an effectively scary distortion of what Elphaba was trying to do, which I think was the original intent of the line, but it really lands with a thud when it's the first time the lion gets established in the play. I can't believe they made that line work without even changing it. The added context really went a long way. Ethan also has this small but fiery moment with Ariana. That was a great touch. I could see that happening in real life when she dumps him for her next boyfriend. I definitely saw the vision a little more with Jeff Goldblum as the wizard. They played up the phony Carney angle more effectively, and I even thought he did a pretty good job in Wonderful. He's still not a great singer, but it's a comedic song, so his delivery worked pretty well for it, and the staging was very creative as well. Though they changed a lot of the lyrics, I don't know what that was about. I kinda like how it was in the original, so this new version will definitely take some getting used to. With that said, adding Glinda to this number is a stroke of genius. I really bought the idea that Elphaba would get swept up in the moment because she wants to get back with her girlfriend. As Long as Your Mind was great vocally, but they kept the abrupt transition into it that the Broadway show had, and I don't know. That might have been a good spot to add some dialogue to. It's just so awkward the way they jump into it without any build-up. And it's weird because they added dialogue exchanges after Elphaba's first verse. I feel like it would have made way more sense for that to be at the start of the song. And the blocking was so odd. Elphaba sings the first part so far away from Fiyero, which doesn't really make a lot of sense based on the lyrics. Yeah, I don't know. They kind of just walk around her treehouse, and it sounds great, obviously, but visually it was a little weak. Kind of like The Wizard and I from the first movie. I hate to say it, but the same is kind of true for Good. It just looks so bland, dog. It was still an effective moment. Yeah, I still cried a little bit, but the filmmaking really did not do it justice. From the standard cinematography to the drab backgrounds. This is why I liked No Good Deed the best in the film. Not just because of Cynthia's insane vocals, but because they actually did creative things with her surroundings. The physical location where she's singing the song was a little ugly, sure, but the last shot was kinda cool, and the stuff leading up to it was pretty interesting looking. Shout out to Thank Goodness as well. There's a long take on Ariana where she runs the full gamut of emotions during her song. I thought that was a great touch. Unsurprisingly, Ariana was kinda the highlight of the film. It's not the craziest, most emotional acting I've seen all year, but it is really effective and she has plenty of devastating moments in this. Even more so than Cynthia, who's still great, but this is very clearly Ariana's movie to shine in. They're really gonna make a play for her in supporting actress, huh? The Oscar voters' brain cannot comprehend the fact that Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel both went lead at the Tonys. Anyway, do I think Ariana deserves the Oscar? Well, she deserved it last year, so maybe this could be a makeup Oscar for her. I'd be pretty happy if it either went to her or Teyana Taylor for one battle after another. But we'll have plenty of months to discuss that. Let's just focus on the movie right now. One other thing I thought was pretty cool is how the score incorporated musical numbers from Act 1. I don't think they did that on Broadway. I think it's really fun how Glinda came out singing a bit of Popular, and then you hear the soldiers singing it. That's pretty cool. At the end of the day, though, despite most of the performances and technical aspects like the costumes and sets being as great as ever, this movie just wasn't brave enough to fix the fundamental rot at the heart of Act 2. Despite plenty of improvements, it was just kinda rough watching the story contort itself to suit the needs of the Wizard of Oz. And I really wish they could have done more. Not change everything, mind you. I know it's too much to ask to change the stuff with the Scarecrow and the Tin Man, even if it is kinda dumb. But I initially had faith. I'm gonna be honest, that first scene with the Tin Man was decently effective and frightening. I thought he was gonna kill that person for a second. It's much better than on Broadway when he just kinda wakes up and the audience laughs because haha, funny Wizard of Oz reference. This origin for him and the way it was framed suited the darker tone very nicely. But I'm sad to report that the Scarecrow thing is as dumb as ever. It still doesn't make sense logistically with the Tin Man and where Dorothy was in her journey at that point in time. And I just don't think the Scarecrow needed to be created in the first place. Elfie, honey, you can fly. The monkeys can fly. The monkeys carry someone at the end of the movie. They could have just carried that other character. They didn't need to leave the character behind. You could have just fought the guards instead of dipping into your magic book. It's just so stupid. Hell, earlier than that, why do they do what they do with the wizard? Why not just take him prisoner and go from there? What is your goal here? How did the wizard not get trampled to death in the earlier scene? See, you can forgive a lot of weird elements on the stage because it's a play. Everything kind of exists in this alternate reality where you have to use your imagination to fill in some blanks. But when you're seeing all of this in a movie where there are so many awkward issues with how it's directed, it makes some of the awkward elements of the story feel even more forced, because it really doesn't seem like they needed to happen. And while the presence of Dorothy is somewhat improved since we see glimpses of her, and Glinda isn't just waving off stage to no one, it still just feels off. Like we're watching a Wizard of Oz highlight reel. I really hate to keep harping on this because all of the film's biggest issues are just inherited from the stage show, but that's just how it is. The first Wicked movie got to soar by offloading all of the story's baggage and saving it for this follow-up, which I genuinely hoped would iron out more issues than it ultimately did. It just doesn't hold up nearly as well as a standalone feature. Not just because of the story, but because the songs in the first part of Act 2 just aren't as engaging. I like Thank Goodness and Wonderful, but you don't really get anything on par with No One Mourns the Wicked or Dancing Through Life until we reach the back half of the film with As Long As You're Mine and No Good Deed. And since the first 15 minutes of Act 2 are drawn out to be like an hour, you kind of have to wait a while between songs, which makes it even more frustrating when the song you do get after all that waiting is Wicked Witch of the East. The new songs they added for Glinda and Elphaba are kind of unremarkable, despite Ariana and Cynthia obviously giving great performances. Yeah, I don't think these will hold up in the best original song competition that now seems to be between Sinners and K-pop Demon Hunters. The last thing I wanted to bring up was... my editor's gonna be so mad at me. Sorry, Liv. The one performance that really does not work in this film is Michelle Yeoh. Her singing bits are so stilted and awful sounding. Apparently she warned John M. Chu that she wasn't a good singer up front, and he cast her anyway. But she really isn't strong enough in the acting department in this film to justify being in it. I just don't know how that's possible for such an otherwise excellent actress. She has maybe one effectively intimidating scene in this film, but otherwise, yeah, she's shockingly the real weak link in this cast.
Honestly, I can't defend it either. She has her Oscar. That's all that matters.
Let's see, anything else? My audience laughed when they saw the Scarecrow's design. Someone was on their phone for like 20 minutes in the middle, and finally, during As Long As You're Mine, this lady snapped and said, "Turn your cell phone off. Thank you for your service." Yeah, that's about it. Wicked for Good is a frustrating film. I definitely don't think it's bad, which is certainly a word I would use to describe Act 2 of the musical, but I just feel like it was more than possible to stick the landing better here. Which, I mean, hey, if you need this to be a faithful adaptation, then maybe this is the best they could have done. Ultimately, I don't want to rain on the parade of anyone enjoying this movie. If you like Act 2 of Wicked, you're going to like this. If you love the first film, there's still a lot to enjoy in this one. Hell, the final shot of this movie is actually kinda genius. It left a smile on my face as I left the theater. Overall, I knew what I was getting into going in, and I got a movie that certainly could have been worse. I'm gonna give Wicked for Good a 6 out of 10. I was really trying harder than I've ever tried before to justify raising my score for this film. I was like, okay, can this be a 7? Is there a world where I call this a 7 out of 10 despite all my issues with the story? But I just don't think I can. Maybe it can be a hybrid of 6 and 7. Yeah, there you go, 6, 7 out of 10. Okay, I'll see you guys in a few months when I compare the Broadway and movie soundtracks for the Act 2 songs. Good night, Oz.